Can I tell you something that might completely change the way you think about promotions? Most women believe the promotion conversation starts when they ask for it. It doesn't. By the time you sit down for that conversation, your manager has already been experiencing your leadership for months. The question isn't, will I be ready when the opportunity comes? The question is, what story has my leadership already been telling? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on how promotion decisions really happen. Ready? Let's go. Welcome to Career Growth for Working Women. This show is for women who are done waiting to be noticed and ready to be compensated for the value they already bring. I'm Shannon, a promotion and compensation coach, and I help women position themselves for real advancement, not by working harder, but by showing their value more strategically using what I call the 5% method. If you're ready for clarity, confidence, and career growth that actually pays off, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello, welcome back to the show. I've been thinking about something since last week's episode. We talked about how your manager isn't a mind reader, and I hope one idea stayed with you. Your manager can only advocate for the leadership impact they clearly understand. That naturally leads to another question. When does that advocacy actually begin? Most people would answer, when promotion season starts. Or when I decide to ask for a promotion. Or maybe when my annual review comes around. And those are reasonable answers. They're also why so many high performing women end up feeling disappointed. Because here's what I've learned. Promotion conversations rarely begin the day someone asks for a promotion. They've usually been happening long before anyone ever says the word promotion. Now, I don't necessarily mean there's a formal meeting where leaders are discussing your future every week. That's probably not happening. What I mean is this. Every interaction your manager has with you is quietly answering a question. How do I experience this person's leadership? Not just, can she do the work? Can she solve the problems? Can she meet the deadlines? Those things matter. But eventually, the questions become bigger. Can I trust her with more responsibility? Does she think beyond the task in front of her? How does she respond when things don't go according to plan? What happens when she disagrees with someone? Do people naturally look to her? Would she represent this team well at the next level? Those aren't questions your manager suddenly starts asking you in November because performance reviews are around the corner. They're questions that get answered little by little, conversation by conversation, project by project, meeting by meeting. That might sound intimidating. I actually think it's one of the most encouraging things you'll ever learn about your career because it means your future isn't riding on one perfect performance review or one flawless presentation or one conversation where you finally find the courage to advocate for yourself. Your future is being shaped by consistency, and consistency is something you can influence every single week. I remember coaching a woman who came to me because she'd been passed over for a promotion. She was frustrated. She was hurt. And honestly, she was confused. She looked at me and said, I don't understand what happened. I worked so hard this year. I thought I was ready. So I asked her a question. When was the first time you talked with your manager about wanting to grow into the next level? She thought for a minute. She said, during my performance review. I nodded. Then I asked, when do you think your manager started forming an opinion about whether you were ready? She sat quietly for a few seconds, and then she smiled. Not because she loved the answer, because she suddenly understood it. The conversation didn't start at her performance review. That was simply the first time she joined a conversation that had already been developing. Let me tell you something. I don't want that to discourage you. I want it to empower you. Because once you understand how promotions really happen, you'll stop putting so much pressure on one conversation. Instead, you start seeing every conversation as an opportunity. Every one-on-one, every project update, every meeting, every time you solve a problem, every time you ask a thoughtful question, every time you connect your work to the bigger picture. Those moments are quietly shaping your leadership reputation. And here's something I don't think we talk enough about. Managers don't promote potential they discover overnight. They promote leadership they've experienced consistently. Think about the people you've admired throughout your career. I doubt there was one magical moment when you suddenly thought, wow, they're a leader. More likely, it was a dozen little moments. The way they handled difficult conversations, the questions they asked, the confidence they brought to meetings, the way they supported people, the way they solved problems. Eventually, all of those moments formed a picture in your mind. Leadership. And that's exactly what's happening with you, whether you realize it or not. People are building a picture, not based on one big moment, based on hundreds of small ones. Here's what I've noticed. High-performing women often wait for permission before they start thinking like leaders. They tell themselves, once I get promoted, I'll speak up more. Once I have the title, I'll think more strategically. Once they recognize me, I'll start acting like a leader. I found the opposite is true. People don't promote you because you have the title. They promote you because you've already demonstrated the behaviors they associate with that title. And that is an important distinction because it means your promotion isn't the beginning of your leadership. It's the recognition of leadership you've already been demonstrating. And that realization changes everything because now your goal isn't simply to prepare for promotion season. Your goal is to make your leadership easier to recognize all year long. I think this is where so many women unintentionally put the pressure on themselves that they were never meant to carry. They tell themselves, when the promotion opens, that's my chance. When my annual review comes, that's when I'll make my case. When my manager asks about my goals, I'll finally tell him I'm ready. And let me tell you, if that's the first meaningful promotion conversation you've had, you're asking one conversation to do the work of an entire year. And that's a lot of pressure. The good news is it doesn't have to work that way. I've been thinking about it lately. When leaders make promotion decisions, they're really making a decision about trust. Can this person handle more responsibility? Can they think at the next level? Can I confidently put them in situations where they'll represent our team well? Notice those aren't questions that can be answered by one presentation or one impressive project. They're answered through repeated experiences. Leaders build confidence in people the same way we build confidence in anything else, over time. And that's why consistency matters so much. Every project you lead, every challenge you navigate, every conversation where you connect your work to the bigger picture, every time you help someone solve a problem, you're giving people another experience of your leadership. One experience probably won't change your reputation, but 50 experiences will. That's why I often say your reputation is built long before it's rewarded. I've seen it happen many times. A woman gets promoted and everyone around her says, "Wow, that happened fast." From the outside, it looks sudden. Behind the scenes, though, leadership had been watching her growth for months, sometimes even years. The promotion wasn't the beginning of the conversation. It was simply the point where everyone agreed she was already operating at the next level. That changes how you can think about your own career. Because now your question isn't, how do I convince them I'm ready? It's, how do I consistently help them experience my leadership? Those are two completely different strategies. One depends on persuasion, and the other depends on positioning. And positioning feels so much lighter because you're not trying to become someone you're not. You're simply making the leadership you already demonstrate easier to recognize. Here's what I want you to remember. Every one-on-one, every project update, every meeting, every cross-functional conversation is an opportunity to leave one more piece of evidence. Not evidence that you're busy, evidence that you're growing into the leader you want to become. That shift changed my own thinking. I stopped seeing career growth as preparing for one big opportunity. I started seeing it as intentionally building a reputation over time. That's sustainable. That's authentic. And honestly, that's a lot less stressful. Because if one meeting doesn't go well, you're okay. If one presentation isn't your best, you're okay. If one conversation feels awkward, you're okay. One moment doesn't define your leadership. Consistency does. I think that's something every high-performing woman needs to hear. You don't have to be perfect. You simply have to keep showing people who you are over and over again. That's how trust is built. That's how leadership is recognized. And that's how promotions happen. So before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one small promotional move for this week. Take 10 minutes and answer this question. If someone described my leadership today, what 3 words would I hope they'd use? Write those down. Then ask yourself one more question. What did I do this week that gave someone evidence of those 3 words? If the answer comes easily, keep building on it. If it's harder than you expected, that's okay too. You just identified where you can become more intentional. Because your reputation isn't created in one conversation. It's created through hundreds of small moments that point in the same direction. I'll leave you with one final thought. Promotion season doesn't create your reputation. It reveals it. So don't wait for the opportunity to start showing people the leader you already are. Help them experience your leadership today. One conversation, one project, one decision at a time. Because becoming impossible to overlook isn't about having one unforgettable moment. It's about becoming someone people consistently trust, remember, and confidently advocate for. Okay, talk to you soon. If today's episode sparked something for you, a question, an idea, or a realization, don't ignore it. I offer promotion strategy calls where we walk through your current role, your goals, and how to position you for your next promotion or raise without burning out or overworking. You can book that call using the link in the description. And if this episode helped you, sharing it or leaving a quick review makes a bigger difference than you know. Until next time, keep showing your value clearly. You've earned it.